Thank you all for the opportunity to present on an area of research and scholarship that has been very prominent in my life in terms of how we have gotten to improving services for kids with disabilities. Starting off, I want to give you a little bit about my background and then talk about context. And when I'm going to be talking about context, I'm going to be zeroing in on it through both challenges and opportunities that alternative route programs provide us. I'll then focus in on what we know about ARPs in general and special education. And then I'm going to finish up with considerations for effective program design and implementation. So in approaching ARPs, let me give you a little bit of context of where I'm coming from. Prior to becoming a dean of the School of Education 6.5 years ago, I was on the faculty at Johns Hopkins University. And at that time and place, I was very fortunate to have received significant funding to be able to both design what we thought were innovative program designs to meet the needs of our districts that were experiencing shortage of special educators. And in particular, in the Baltimore area, a shortage of special educators from underrepresented groups. We like to think that the program that we designed was both rigorous, met the standards, and the design of that program also led us to truly study what is it that we know about alternative routes. And that was a challenge because a lot of these things were going on under the surface and trying to assess what all of our colleagues were doing in their own communities to increase the number of special education teachers turned out to be quite a chore. And it was one of the things that we were able to do as part of the COPS project years ago, and then came up with an indexing study of alternative route programs. My position now as the dean of a fairly large comprehensive school of education in New York State is trying to navigate how can we, through entrenched systems, come up with rigorous program designs that will allow us to meet the shortage of special education teachers. We're faced with challenges at the state level, faced with challenges at our own universities, and certainly within the academic community. Let me just go over some of the challenges in general in trying to come up with alternative route programs, particularly in special education or in general education. First is that when we talk about ARPs, everyone views it as a big mass. It's all together. And when people talk about alternative route programs, they often think of it in terms of general education. And there are competing goals for ARPs. We all know that there's foundations that have found fault with traditional teacher preparation and want to come up with streamlined designs, certainly other designs, and they are using alternative routes. So it's not unusual to see ways of changing the way we are preparing teachers. In special education, I don't think that the growth of alternative routes come from any sort of political agenda. We know that it takes an awful lot of skills for people to succeed as special educators. For us, it's been a shortage-driven goal in terms of changing the way we are often delivering special education. So there are a lot of differences between general education and special education alternative programs in terms of what the roots of that are. We've been very frustrated that when people talk about alternative route programs in the general education literature, they have not really considered what it is that we've been doing in special education, mostly because I think the goals of that program design are different from us. One of the things that I found as being a dean here and working both with my faculty as well as with folks up at the State Department is that when we start talking about innovative designs in teacher prep, we face entrenched thinking. And this entrenched thinking is both regulatory way of, well, you need to have this course and we need to have these competencies and it needs to be done this way. But I've also experienced this entrenched thinking in terms of the individual faculty members who have their own areas of expertise and are tied to a certain way of doing things. As I'll talk about a little bit later on, one of the major obstacles that we face in terms of coming up with innovative designs for programs to meet the shortages is often within our own faculties and often within our own governance structures at the college and university that we cannot respond quickly. When we talk about alternative routes, it's like if it's alternative, it's bad or it's good, depending upon the perspective that one is coming from. The other challenge associated with alternative routes is how do we influence the nature of professionalization? When you have students who are becoming inducted into a profession, time as an experience often leads to investment in the profession. Whereas when you have more quick, streamlined programs where people do not have as much skin in the game, like I'm just going to go in and I'm going to try this change of career teaching, you don't have an opportunity to develop those professional skills, competencies, dispositions. And oftentimes in those highly streamlined programs, we see high rates of attrition because people do not develop that commitment that a full induction program will often provide. If you look at those attrition rates, they're so high on those very streamlined programs. And then finally, the challenge associated with ARPs is that we have difficulty assessing the efficacy of our programs. And there's few agreed outcome measures in terms of what it is. In New York, we do not have a method to go and fully assess the efficacy of our individual training programs. Coming here, I've often said, I really welcome the opportunity to be able to show that our students who graduate from SUNY have a greater impact on their students than those that come from Program X, Program Y, Program Z, which may be more streamlined, less rigorous and the like. But we don't have the opportunity to do it. And often people are making statements in a vacuum because there are no data in terms of the program outcomes. People can pretty much say almost anything. And that's often what happens. And it often devolves into a political argument rather than an empirical one. With all of these challenges, there still are a number of opportunities that we have in terms of the design of programs. Opportunities for special education. We need to address shortages, and we need to address the disproportionate distribution of highly effective teachers. Here in New York, the urban areas, rural areas are having a difficult time getting teachers, special education teachers in particular. They're looking for ways of getting training and getting highly effective teachers. Second thing that the opportunities are innovative program designs. Each of us has great ideas about how if we could design a training program, a teacher development program, this is how we would do it. We would have more field-based. We would have more opportunities to develop these things that we would not necessarily land on what is being done now. Being able to have the opportunity to design an alternative program is very exciting. It's also very responsive to regional needs. Third thing is we keep on hearing about the need for clinically rich preparation. Alternative programs provide that opportunity to really enhance these clinically rich models where students are learning things and then they're able to practice it and they're getting the adequate supervision. And clearly related to that is enhancing and institutionalizing the P20 partnership. Right now, everyone talks about partnerships, but they are both abstract and very targeted. So they are really relationship-based between people who may know other people. There's no opportunity to have an institutionalized partnership that is almost contractual. And we often have districts that may not want to participate with us in the development of the next generation of teachers. How do we work with them in a way that they are actually contractually obligated to help us develop the next generation of teachers? What we know about ARPs, and a lot of this comes from papers and syntheses that have appeared, 1/3 of all teachers participated in some type of ARP, with the majority being in large urban centers. There's a lack of empirical evidence of major differences between ARPs, and this may be a function of variability among AR programs. What do we mean by an alternative route program? Is it related to time of entry, placement factors? There's a real blurring of programmatic lines of demarcation right now. And it may be that innovation and creativity is becoming synonymous with alternative, making it very difficult to define what we mean by alternative from traditional. But one thing we do know is that special education alternative programs differ from general education. And this was something that we found with that special education indexing study that the vast majority of special education alternative programs were actually designed and implemented by IHEs with SEA and LEA partnerships. This is very different than what we find in general education, where we're having different agencies, Teach for America, New York Teacher Core models, that we have taken it on ourselves in IHEs to try to get as innovative as possible with partnerships. The program types of alternative route programs sort of fall into 4 categories. There's the internship model. You take courses, you have some sort of residency, maybe you're hired by the district, maybe the first year you are a substitute teacher or an instructional assistant. Then there's the whole technologically based distance education programs. There are the paraprofessional step-up programs, which are very compelling, very interesting. And then there are those local agencies, and I'm thinking of some of the regional education centers in Texas that have taken it upon themselves to develop teachers. Special education ARPs are not as fast or streamlined like our general education alternative programs. I think it's to the credit of our colleagues recognizing the complexity and the intensiveness of what it takes to be a high-quality special education teacher. So we found that most of the programs that we reviewed require considerable time, greater than 18 months, for instructional activities. We just know that these really quick in-the-classroom programs for special ed, it's just a formula for high attrition rates, and those are costly. Evaluations indicate that programs tend to be structurally similar to traditional programs, but differ in the population served. So change of career people, perhaps general educators wanting to become special educators, paraprofessionals. And what we also found is that the step-up programs appear to be the best fit for special education. You have special education instructional assistants, paraprofessionals who are familiar with kids. They've seen a lot of evidence-based practices, and they are entrenched in the culture of the school. So here are the considerations for effective program design and implementation, a template for what people should do in terms of the design of programs. The first thing is to engage in productive partnerships. We found that school context where alternative route program participants were working had the strongest impact on outcome measures. So clearly, context, particularly with individuals who are engaged in residency type programs, are going to impact how well they are going to continue on as effective teachers. And the other thing that we found was that those successful partnerships have explicit direct time allocated to collaborative activities. It's not something that one just says, you're in the building, go ahead and do it, but that investments are made to facilitate the collaboration. The second thing is to integrate best practices and program components. These are the things that the students in the programs need right away: classroom survival, integrating student topics, collaboration, and really building on the strengths of a cohort model. To address the challenges associated with internal and external approvals and governance. One of the greatest challenges faced by deans and administrators, faculty members, is how do we get program approval for innovative program designs? How do we get faculty buy-in and get approval even within our faculty to want to go and emphasize one thing, perhaps another? And then the issue of level playing fields, which is those who are outside of the university system often get allowed to cut some requirements from their programs and have greater freedom in program design. Finally, going to scale. We've been very fortunate to have gotten funding for programs that have trained 15, 20 teachers, pilot programs that provide rich data. But when we go to scale, we realize how expensive it is to provide quality programming. There's a need for a new infrastructure for this. And I think part of it is institutionalizing partnerships through formal educator preparation roles. They actually have to buy in contractually.
I wanted to share about our university because, of course, we have a large residency program. but we're also a larger institution. We've been in existence for 100 years. We're nationally accredited, and we produce about 400 credential students a year and about 400 master's students, also EDD students. And our work in this partnership and residencies was awarded with the McCullough Award in 2014. And so it's something we're actually particularly proud of. Being a Californian, everybody kind of knows where Sacramento and San Francisco are, and Los Angeles and San Diego, but Fresno's right there in the middle. It's that bone-shaped county. The city of Fresno is urban. It's about 750,000 people. Our largest school district has 75,000 students. Second largest has 45,000. So we are an urban center. Though we are surrounded by agriculture, we're very diverse. We're a Latinx majority population in many of our school districts. We also are dealing with some poverty, and we're dealing with improving our four-year college-going rate in the region. We began our partnership work in 2006, and it was not immediately residencies, it was partners. That was a time where we changed from our student teachers being in that center circle, where the focus was about our student teachers, our candidates, and the focus began to be around TK-12 student learning in our community. And then how could we work with our school districts in a win-win? And our first cohort began in an elementary in Clovis Unified with elementary preparation program, with some meetings with districts around common vision, our relationship, using their space to have our classes, but it was at a fairly rudimentary level. And progression looked like this. Prior to 2005, we had a fairly traditional program, meaning that we had classes. The classes were not necessarily sequenced. Only a few required field placement with them. Students could kind of elect to go Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday. We selected the candidates. We didn't have cohorts. Our classes were during the day and during the evening. And most of our students had 2 student teaching experiences, often in 2 different districts with 2 completely different master teachers and not a lot of continuity. And we did all the supervision. When we moved to partner districts in 2006, and we've been in, I believe, 9 districts for partnerships, we then sequenced our program in field work so candidates couldn't move in until they'd had certain experiences. We still were primarily doing the candidate selection. We did cohort our students. We held our classes out in those school districts, so the school districts provided us with space. Originally, we had to bring in technology, but soon they surpassed our technology in the districts, and so we haven't had to do that for years. Our master teachers supervised the field work, but we did have a new position called liaison with those residencies. We have the same sequence program, but our clinical experiences were enhanced. We jointly selected the candidates. We jointly decided the schedule of how the week should look, and those look different in each of our residencies. The students, of course, were cohorted. We started working with the language of mentors instead of master teachers, and they often have those across a full year placement. And we created a teacher in residence, faculty in residence position that works as a team. One teacher from the district, faculty from our university who are out in the residency supporting the changes. And we've changed to the term coaching, trying to get away from checklist, you met this, to how are you moving across our rubrics to do the kind of work a teacher needs to do and become more skilled. In looking at the Washburn and Rosenberg work, in blue are some of the ways that I see us implementing those. We definitely promote the sort of classroom survival. They are placed prior to school starting. They're with their master teacher in the PD, the schedule and supports to decide what afternoons maybe they're out of the classroom for courses or PD. We have residency calendars, and we text, email, and phone when an individual student has issues to try and shore them up. We have a cohort model, and we have for years. We have also used strengths of the cohort model, moving them into different activities, but also within the cohort, if we have students with bilingual skills. We had a student last semester who has ADHD who presented to her peers. They do things together by grade, but other times we mix them up. We have experienced some cohort effect also, so you need to work to be really clear on communication and professionalism, and that they don't assume things, expectations from day one. We talk about it being interviewed from the minute they start. They orient them to the district. We orient them to the campus. They are required to attend a professional development. Their attire, their attendance, their punctuality, that they begin and end the year, specialized training is all part of professional orientation. Even if they're not in the classroom, they're dressed when they come to our courses that are on campus. Improving practice, we are continually looking at how we as faculty and we together with the district can be doing a better job preparing these new teachers. A lot of formative assessment built through. California is a TPA state, so we do have that summative portion. We have a new observation protocol that is Rubrics, and we use that as well. We integrate topics. Faculty have their specialization, but we also have core and set templates for our syllabi and assignment focus. Almost all of our assignments are applied out in their placement in the residency. One of the things we have to always remind them of is what I call being more metacognitive and actually verbalizing when they're doing things differently in class and why they're doing them, because our candidates don't often see it. We also have inquiry work or problems of practice work as part of our assignments. We have a very high level of collaboration with our districts. We have many meetings and levels of meetings and often communicate through text, phone, emails, and immediately problem solve. So when thinking about residency decisions, and especially thinking about a special education residency, you need to think about grade span and lens or special ed credential you want to offer, school site availability and the inclusive characteristics of that school site. Is it a school site that models and is going to be a place that those residents can go into and see what they need to see? You need to look at your schedule. And this is probably, in my opinion, for us in Fresno, the most problematic because about 95% of our candidates are already working as interns in the state of California. There's such a need, and especially in our valley, that all of our courses are in the 4 to 7, 7 to 10 evening and don't fit a typical residency. So you need to think about what our typical residencies are and how it might have to look different for special education. Maybe using a sub day that a district would support. So you have one day of classes where they provide a sub, or what's the use of summer and how can summer courses be used, and is that an extra cost to student and university, and how does that look? Joint selection of candidates is something that we do in different ways with districts where they come in, they may do some collaborative work in a team, we observe them talking and working together, we see their oral expression, written expression, we do some interviewing, we do sort of like speed dating interviewing. It's the kind of thing you set up with the district based on what they want. But selection of mentors and coaches also needs to be done as a team. Faculty and district teaching in pairs, we do that. The district provides a person to teach with us. That person often is a curriculum specialist or a teacher on special assignment, so they're free during the day to participate. Some of our districts that have grants can stipend the person, but other times they just participate as part of their role with the district, and the district has agreed to release them. When we have people like I mentioned, our teacher in resident and faculty in resident, that's part of our infrastructure, it's part of our roles, but it has cost and release time involved. So it's something you need to prepare for. And then there's some what I call the mundane issues that you have to think about. If you're going to go onto another district site to offer your courses, what's the dress code? Where do they park? Can you bring food? Are they wearing lanyards? Do they check in the office? Are they fingerprinted? Fresno Unified is our largest partner, and we have a STEM lens, especially related to math and science grades 4 to 8. Central Unified is a social emotional learning lens, and Sanger Unified requested a universal design for learning lens. Unique feature, candidates hired prior to certification. Time to completion. We have the same time to completion for our special ed standalone credential and our elementary credential. We do have some new teacher performance expectations where we have to write to. We have to meet all of the elementary TPEs and then additionally meet our TPEs in SPED. So it's going to be a bigger pull for us to think of how to do that in the same amount of time. Be creative in scheduling your residency, late afternoons, evenings, 4-day week, summers. Finding mentors with an inclusive mindset is really important. Have district partners help you. Use principal recommendation, maybe scores if they're available, observations. But I would also caution on principal recommendations because sometimes what principals see as a strong special ed teacher may not be conveying the kind of inclusive mindset that we in higher ed are looking for. Finding school sites, again, is much the same. Which ones have the leadership and the inclusive practices that are modeled that we can find? And then another issue that's come up has been fatigue in SPED candidates not completing their master's degree. One of the ways that we've worked with that, we infuse SPED graduate master's courses at the end of our credential so that our students start as credential candidates, move to graduate candidates, and that shortens the time and actually enhances the rigor at the end of the program so that the candidates are pleased they don't have 30 more units to finish a master's degree. Challenges both external and internal. Much like UDL in our field, we're going to look for solutions. So in program approval, there are some things that we have been able to do, such as when cohorts have strong PD in a certain area, then we may be able to either shorten a week, remove some class sessions, do something different. That also has freed up time for them to go to curriculum PD in the district or do things that are hard for us to fit into our schedule. We use existing governance committees. We have SPED program committees, elementary program committees, and SPED faculty and elementary faculty sit on both of those. We also have secondary. All of our meetings are open, so if faculty want to attend, they can attend, whether they're formally a representative or not. We have district representation and open meetings, but leadership and passion about it is really critical. Faculty buy-in, or sort of the entrenched thinking, I think we're working on the most. We do that through a number of fashions. One of them is they're not forced to participate in the residency. We often try to see it as a positive, and so people ask to participate. When we interview new faculty, we ask them about experiences with that. Have they worked in partnerships? Are they interested? When we interview them, we take them out to show them residencies working. The chairs of our department manage the assignments, and we are a union. The CSU has a CFA union, and we have a collective bargaining agreement across all 23. The level playing field issue is a little bit different. We do not have any shortened time period for our candidates that are going through residency or interns. We have the same hour requirements. The district requests and expectations. Sometimes we have a hard time getting things done quickly and working with our governance structures, but they also sometimes have a hard time understanding the diffused authority that we have at a university and that we don't have direct line authority. And so something can't be changed immediately. We have to work around our bargaining agreement with assignment of faculty. We've also had some differences on things like scripted curriculum and how to work with that and how can we work with that in our courses, and talk about the ways that we think are research best practices and high leverage practices. We haven't done it alone. We have had other partners. NCTR has been a really good partner to us. We've gone to their trainings, Department of Ed, and we have a new partner with Branch Alliance who is working with us on faculty development. We've prepared 12 cohorts of residents in Fresno Unified, over 300 residents. I've been asked if there's been fatigue or if districts want to back out. It's been actually the opposite. We have requests from Clovis Unified, both for a SPED and an elementary, and Madera for a bilingual authorization. There are costs to us. The coordinator position that I have in partnership, although we've been doing it for a decade, that would be something if it's new, the faculty and residents, mileage, the time it takes to plan, all of those are an investment. You also have to bring your staff along, your advisors and department assists, to make sure they understand the work you're doing. We have a president's commission. Our president of the university meets with superintendents about 3 times a year with us for about an hour at 7:30 in the morning. The expectations that all candidates can go into a residency, funding positions, using data and having data agreements and agreeing on meeting structures. We have an MOU for fieldwork. We actually don't have one for residency. We found that when we tried to push them into some of the bigger districts with attorneys, it actually got in our way more than it helped us, that we were doing fine and they were looking at ways to limit. But I think it depends on, where you're at.